This week I've been driving the 2020 Chevrolet Bolt. New for this year is an increase in range up to 259 miles on a charge. And it's been a couple years since we've been in a Bolt. Always do enjoy driving these things. They're fun, they're fast, they are quite nice inside. And electric cars are just, I think, inherently nice to drive. So let's go through what I've thought about driving this Bolt this week. I'll start walking you around the exterior. Of course, whenever you have a Chevy vehicle on and you open the door, you get this annoying bonging noise, which is great for filming. And you close the door and it beeps at you. Anyway, interesting, kind of a flat gray here. Kind of a neat color for this car. I do like the size of the Bolt. It's nicely proportioned. The interior packaging is actually quite impressive. There's a good amount of back seat room. And ingress and egress is fantastic. This is one of the most friendly vehicles to get in and out of on the market today. You have this low floor, it's all flat, it's easy to move around back here. You're seated a little bit higher than the front seat passengers, but I still have plenty of legroom here. And this is great. This is more than enough space for 4 adults, maybe even 5 in a pinch. These headrests fold up and down, so you get a little bit better visibility out of the back. This is kind of a light, airy interior. There's some nice materials throughout, but overall I will say everything in here is kind of hard. There are lots of hard touch plastics, some different surfacing, not a lot of soft materials. Even this armrest here on the door and this padded center armrest are not that forgiving, though this does adjust, which is nice. For how short this Bolt is, you even get a pretty decently sized rear trunk area. This cargo cover can be removed. It can be raised up so that it folds flat with the floor. You can hide stuff underneath, like your charger, and pretty nice amount of space, good amount of height. It's a very usable interior. Kind of reminds me a little bit of the Honda Fit in its packaging, where you look at it from the outside, you don't think there's going to be a lot of space inside, but you go in and it feels very, very nicely sized. There you go, not much to look at, but you do get some battery packs in the engine compartment and lots of high voltage wiring. Alright, let's take this thing for a drive. This shifter is a little bit weird, but there is a mild funkiness overall to this Bolt. I noticed that when I first got into it. It's not overboard, it's not too much. It still feels like a normal car, but you can definitely tell you're in something a little bit special because, first of all, you don't have this center area here. This is all open. You can put a bag down here. Great space to put your phone. There's even a little holder here. You can plug into Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. And you do get really nice, high-res reverse cameras and a 360 camera. Chevrolet struggled with camera quality for years, and this is a pretty big step up for them. It's all very nice. You do get a slightly raised driving position in this Bolt. It took me a little bit to find a comfortable arrangement between seating and the steering wheel placement, but I'm actually quite comfortable in this. I like that I can see just a little bit higher up in this. I don't feel like I'm so small compared to all the SUVs on the road. power level, the instant torque, the overall horsepower from this is great. It's fun. It's fun to drive. You definitely can overpower the tires at some points. It does have a one pedal driving mode, so you just put it down into L on the shifter, you let off the throttle, and it'll give you quite a bit of regenerative braking. One of my biggest complaints with the Bolt when I drove it a couple years ago was the ride quality. It was really stiff, it was really harsh. You felt that short wheelbase all the time. It was very rough over bumps. Primary ride wasn't very good. Secondary ride was decent over rougher pavement, but ultimately I haven't really found any information on the 2020 Bolt if they've made changes, but I can feel changes, so I think they've softened up the ride just a little bit. And I know a lot of owners complained about that as well on forums and stuff like that. So that is a welcome change to this 2020 as well. Great turning radius here too. Let's do a little 0 to 60 test, might as well. Even do some braking here. Put it into sport mode, traction off. Brakes work well enough. And go. It's not Model 3 fast, but it's definitely quicker and more responsive than a lot of other vehicles on the road in this class and this size. Put some sticky tires on your Bolt and you'd have a pretty fun autocross car. There's a lot that I do like about this. This is probably one of my top picks in this segment compared to the Nissan Leaf. That might be my number 2. And the Kia Niro EV was a good option too, but I didn't quite like the regenerative braking. Even though that was a nice overall electric car to drive, it was a little bit dull, a little bit boring. One mark against the Bolt is there is no radar-guided cruise control. I noticed this in the Silverado 2500 I had a couple weeks ago. And it's just a collision alert control, and you can also set your following distance, but it'll just tell you how close you are to someone. It's just a traditional cruise control system, which actually is fine. Traditional cruise control has always worked quite well. The button layout is fantastic, and you do get lane keep assist. It'll give you a little steering nudge if you're straying out close to the lines. Heated steering wheel button is right here, easy to access on those cold mornings. And of course, with every electric car, you get pretty much instant on heat and AC from this, which is great. I actually haven't tested the air conditioning. You see a little bit of a range drop when you turn on the climate control, but on days like today where it's sunny and 55 out, you really don't have to run anything and you can get that extra range. But with 259 miles total range, I think that's just about the sweet spot without range anxiety. If you're charging up to a full battery every night and starting the day fresh with over 200 miles, your chances aren't going to be doing more driving than that. And everyone's habits and usage is different. Some people may only need 90 miles out of their electric car because they just drive a few miles a day. But I think this Bolt offers a really nice balance. I test drove a Chevy Volt couple months ago, and my biggest complaint with it was that I just felt claustrophobic and cramped, and the visibility was just terrible. I couldn't see anywhere. And I don't have that complaint with this Bolt. I feel very spacious and open, and I have a lot of roof height. These extra windows here in front of the A-pillar are really nice. The driving position is quite upright, but it is comfortable. I think after spending some more miles in this, I've kind of gotten to appreciate it a little bit more overall. The infotainment is great. It's easy to use. The touchscreen is really responsive. Apple CarPlay is pretty quick. It's nice and high res too. You have good screen quality here. There's no weird reflections or anything here set up. All of your climate controls are easy to access. You have automatic high beams. Overall, good stuff. Let's get on the highway here and test this out on an entrance ramp. Even at highway speeds, power level is great. You can just zip around cars in this Bolt. It's pretty satisfying to drive. You do get a little bit more wind noise at highway speeds, though that could be exacerbated by the lack of just an engine and the NVH created from that. Everything in an electric car sounds louder than it really is, even the windshield wipers. It's amazing when you take out the vibration and the sounds from an engine, even if it's quiet and really well isolated, how much of a difference that makes and how much you notice it when driving. They've definitely done some things to improve the ride quality in this Bolt. This is much more forgiving, much more livable. It's perfectly comfortable in my opinion. This would be a great daily driver, even on Michigan's rough roads. Have our tire pressure isn't maxed out either. We're at 3940 psi, which is pretty good. On the highway, even up to speed, it's quite stable. If you bump it down to 65 miles an hour, your speedo gauge will turn a lighter shade of green. Depending on your speed, that'll kind of give you some efficiency estimates. And in my experience, when you're driving these Bolts around town, you can get pretty close to the estimated mileage. You shouldn't have any trouble eking out 250, 260 miles out of a charge in one of these things if you're really driving conservatively and you have mostly city driving. Once you get on the highway, you start hitting higher speeds. That's when you run into a little bit less range. But I do like how it shows you a max 209, min 145 range, depending on your driving habits. And there's kind of a slider that moves towards one end of the spectrum or another. Quite a bit of regen noise, but I think it sounds kind of cool. This Bolt still has a little bit of this sonorous parking lot speed noise, and unlike some of the other offerings that I've tested, it's not spooky and creeps you out like Toyota's, for example. You just have to love the instantaneous nature of electric cars. throttle pedal is really linear. You can maintain speed easily, so you're not speeding everywhere. It's just it's a cool driving experience. And honestly, in L mode, I've been doing most of my driving without touching the brake pedal, unless if I'm coming in really hot into a corner. You can pretty much do one pedal driving, and I will say that makes a really big difference. So how can we sum up the Bolt? Well, I like it. There isn't a lot here that is a deal breaker. There's a few little shakes and rattles and things here and there, but overall it's pretty solid. I wish there wasn't so much plastic around the interior. It's nicely designed and I like the look of it, but I think Chevrolet should add a little bit more padding and comfort here, so this doesn't feel like such an econo car from some of the touch points. I will say the shifter is kind of nice. The steering wheel has a good leather that it's wrapped in, but this is the top of the line Premier at $43,000. It's a lot of money, but I will say Chevrolet is offering some pretty good deals on these things right now. I don't think anyone would be paying 40 grand for a Bolt. You could probably find one for about 10 grand off MSRP pretty easily, and get one of these a year or two old, and you're probably in the low to mid 20s. Alright guys, well that'll wrap it up for this one. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. We'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, we'll see you later.